I had a conversation at work that honestly changed how I see a lot of things. An older guy, he's been working the same job for over 40 years. He was injured, exhausted, and he still shows up. And what he told me made one thing clear. If you follow the normal path, you might end up stuck in it. I'm not gonna lie to you, most people are already stuck. Not because they're stupid, but because they followed a path they never questioned. You go to school, get a job, you work for decades, and somehow that's supposed to lead to freedom. They call that the American dream. But newsflash, it doesn't lead to freedom. It leads to survival. I'm 22 and I don't claim to understand everything about the economy or politics, but I can feel what's happening. Everything is more expensive, opportunities feel harder to reach, and a lot of people my age feel like we're just waiting. Waiting to afford life, waiting to figure it out, waiting for things to get better. But here's the truth nobody says. If you keep waiting, you just fall behind. Think about this for a second. When was the last time you actually felt in control of your life financially? Like not surviving, not barely getting by, actually in control. See, other generations didn't have this exact problem, or at least not like this. A lot of them followed a path like get a job, get steady income, buy a house, and then retire. That's pretty simple, right? But today, that same path feels broken because now it looks like get a job, pay bills, pay debt, stress, and repeat. And the worst part is a lot of people know it's broken, but they still follow it anyways. So back to my coworker, he's in his mid 60s and he told me he's worked over 40 years at the same job. Honestly, that's pretty impressive because he said that was his only job since he ever started working. Anyways, about a month ago he got injured twice. The first time he was reaching awkwardly, so it messed up his shoulder, and the second time was actually kind of crazy. A pallet slipped while he was pushing it down a ramp, knocked him straight to the ground. And I'm listening to this and thinking, wow, really? I mean, the guy's already physically disabled to an extent, but on top of that, he's pulling load. Like, don't get me wrong, I know it's a job that he's basically committed to at this point, but I can't help to think that he's basically stuck working like this because of his age and health and his mindset. So I asked him a question, and what I asked him is, do they at least take care of you? Like financially and stuff like that. He said, yeah, but not really. He'd get workers' compensation, $350 a week, but after deductions, about $100. Dang, let that sink in. Like 40 plus years of loyalty, and that's what it comes down to. And I also thought, I'm sure that would be a hit to the piggy bank because I wouldn't even be able to live off of 400 a month, especially if I owned a home and had other payments to make. But that's when it really hit me though. You can give your life to a system and it still won't protect you. And this isn't just about him. This is happening everywhere. People working 40 plus hours a week, doing extra work, covering for others, and still barely moving forward. Raises are small, costs keep rising, and time just keeps going. You wake up, work, go home, and repeat. Until one day you look up and realize this is your life now. Hey, and I'm not judging him. If anything, I respect him because that's reality. That's responsibility and that's sacrifice. But at the same time, I couldn't stop thinking, I don't want that to be me. And if you're watching this, you probably don't want that either. And honestly thinking, I know that Gen Z is a different type of mindset compared to older generations like millennials, baby boomers and whatnot. And the way that we think and process things is more based off emotions and feelings than almost logic. That's not necessarily a bad thing though, only because, when you're tapped into your emotions and you actually know what you want, you can go out there and achieve that. Versus back in the day when it was very simple to get what you want, but you just had to put in the hard work. Now, I think that with the economy and politics and a lot of different factors, it's much harder for us to make that logical decision to just work like nobody's alive. Like, I don't even know what that means, but you basically know what I'm trying to say is like they want us to work like slaves and they want us to basically be obedient to the system and get our little money and then, pay the bills and pay everything that we need to, all the debt, just fill it up, man. Just fill my pockets with debt and more debt. Like, no, that's not the life that we want to live. And On top of that, there's like millennials and baby boomers telling Gen Zers that we're lazy and that we don't want to work hard, but we still want to get paid a lot. I wonder where that comes from. I honestly, like, it's not a question for me or for you. It's more of, it's more of a thought process as to why most of us think that way. And trust me, I'm a hard worker. I'm sure a lot of you guys are too. But when you think about it, we have to make enough money to survive basically, while also being able to work hard. And honestly, in this generation, you can make six figures sitting in your room. It's not impossible and there's no excuse to be able to make it happen, but it's honestly just one of those things where not everyone can do it. You have to be a select type of person to actually pull that off. And like I said, not everyone can do it. And so you kind of have to figure out what job you want. Even getting out of college, spending almost all of your life in school just to get out of school and struggle to find a career that can actually pay you good. And on top of that, I mean, it's not guaranteed that you'll be there for the rest of your life or for however long you want, because nothing is guaranteed in this life. But also, when it comes to like the job economy, they're not loyal. These big major companies, they are not loyal at all. They will throw you out in a heartbeat just because you show up to work 5 minutes late or you don't want to do what they want you to do. It's very selective when it comes to these things, and that's why I feel like Gen Z has to be selective, and we got to tap into what we feel is right for our lives, versus what other people think we should do based off of what they used to do. What worked 50 years ago is not going to work today. And be honest, do you really think working a regular job today is enough to build a good life? Or does it feel like something's missing? Because here's what I've noticed. People are working more but feeling less secure. You show up, you do your job, you sometimes even do more than your job. And what do you get? Small raises, more responsibilities, and just enough to keep going. Not enough to get ahead. And over time, that becomes your life. Wake up, work, go home, and repeat. And in this economy nowadays, everyone's talking about a side hustle, trying to work two jobs, trying to make a second income, third income, trying to save, trying to do all these things, get a car, get a house. It's so much on the mental. There's no way to avoid the type of stress that we have nowadays. And I'm not trying to victimize us and make us feel like, oh, we don't have what it takes. We obviously have what it takes. Like in this generation, there's so much opportunity to actually make money. But like I said, it can be very tough in certain circumstances that you almost don't have time to try and build yourself up when it comes to business stuff. Because if you already have a house or an apartment or a car note that you're paying or debt that you're paying off, you have to make money. You have to stay in a consistent job. You need consistent income. Otherwise, you're going to go broke and you're going to be at the bottom of the barrel, and it's going to be much harder to get out of that. And there's a lot of people who are in that situation. I honestly think it's almost easier to just be homeless than to have a full-time job with so much responsibility, like financially. And honestly, that sucks to hear, but you got to think about yourself for a moment. For me, for example, I want to be the type of dude that, is raising a good family. I'm financially taken care of. I can take care of them as well. And I want to be able to have fun too. And if you want to be that type of person to actually control your life, you really got to think about the circumstances. And as easy as it is to say I can just go homeless and, do my life over again, XYZ, it ain't easy being homeless either. Especially if you have responsibility and people to take care of. It's definitely not easy. And thinking about from a homeless perspective, they also have their struggles to go through. So you have to pick your battles wisely. But anyways, the guy that I was talking about, like I said earlier, he said another thing in our conversation, basically calling out Gen Z. And I said this earlier, but he was saying that we're lazy, entitled, and we want to get paid a lot, but don't want to work a lot. And that's not entirely true. We just see through it. Because why would you want to work 40 plus years just to barely survive at the end? I mean, think about it. There are so many older people out there who push the narrative of the American dream, and they try to make you think that if you go to school and you get a degree, you can work X amount of years of your life and then you can retire at 70. You can retire at 80. And honestly, there's people out there, and there's people in my job who are old folks and they're still working. I ask them, are you working? they don't, sometimes they don't even have a choice. Some people live off pension, some people live off government benefits, but others just don't have a choice. They can't even retire even if they wanted to. Is that the life that we want to live? Dude, there are so many younger folks as well, my friends and whatnot, who are not going down that path. We literally just think differently. Like, I don't want to be a slave to anybody else, but the Lord. And I feel like working for these major companies or whatnot, it feels just like that. They don't really care about you. They just care about the labor that you can provide them to help their business grow. And I don't like that. There was this phrase that I heard one time, but I'm just gonna summarize it down. It's important to not be a means to someone else's end, meaning to not be forced to work or do something, or even just be manipulated into doing something for someone else's benefit. Personally, I like the sound of that, and I think that's very true. We shouldn't be, as humans, we shouldn't be slaves to anyone else. Naturally that's how it's supposed to be. But over time, people got greedy and people took advantage of others, and manipulation and all that stuff has occurred to allow people to be able to take advantage of others. And then you got the government doing it, and then you have the higher ups doing it, the elites, and it's so unfortunate to talk about and hear and to live, that it almost makes me consider, how will I feel like outside of America? I've always thought about traveling. I really like the idea of seeing other cultures and seeing how they live, because I want to be able to experience all that. And one day, I'll start to really do it. But first, I got to get my money right. Anyways, I think about that, and I also think about what it's like for them. How different is it? Because people say America is the land of the free, the land of opportunity. And to an extent, that's true, but you will never have all the freedom in America that you want, only because there's limitations, and there's a system set up to where even if you wanted all the freedom you can get, there's rules and regulations and laws that prohibit you from doing all that you want to do. Obviously, if you're mid class or at the bottom, you have stronger limitations. But if you're richer or wealthier, you can bypass that a lot. Especially if you have the money that you need to do that, and even the skill and the mindset and the knowledge. But also, here's the uncomfortable truth that we need to know. You can see the problem and still end up stuck in it, because awareness just isn't enough. If your actions don't change, your life doesn't change. And to me, this means a lot, because I was somebody who complained a lot. I was somebody who was just stuck in the motion and didn't know if it was even possible to get out, just because of my surroundings and whatnot. And let me tell you, that had to change. That mindset, it had to change. And so that's why I started focusing on what I can control, which is my habits, my health, and my mindset, and my relationship with God. Because all of that affects your decisions, and your decisions determine your future. You don't escape a bad situation overnight. I'm sure you know that. But you do start small, and those small changes, they build into something bigger. So that's what you need to consider here. If you're gonna make a big change in your life, you gotta start small. You need to stop thinking about the future so much, or your past mistakes, and you need to just stay in the present, because the present is how you change. If you try focusing too much on the future, you're not in the present, and therefore you're gonna mess up your steps. It's like walking up a set of stairs and you're not looking at the steps in front of you, you're looking at the top. And what happens? You end up tripping and falling, because you're not looking at where you're stepping. And so that's when it comes down to taking small steps, taking it one step at a time. If you're not taking it one step at a time, then you're trying to get to the end faster than you want to, or faster than you even need to. And that's going to trip you up. It's going to make you fall, and it's going to slow your progression down. So I try to tell people this, whenever they're struggling with the decision or whatnot, you got to just take it a step at a time. For example, if you want to buy a car, you got to know what car you want first. Obviously, planning is good. You got to know how you want to get that car, or where you want to get it, or when you want to get it. But at the same time, you got to look at your bank account. Are you financially able to get that car? Which way do you want to take it? Do you want to finance it, or you want to pay it in full? You want to buy it new, or you want to buy it used? Plan all that stuff out and then work towards it. If you have $10 in your account, you got to work towards building up 100 and then building up more money so that you have enough to actually put down on the car or pay it out. And then you can go ahead and make that decision. And hey, to some people it works out. Maybe skipping steps is an efficient way for you to actually make it happen, but for most people it's not. Most people are not going to take that route and it's not going to work out for them. But to each its own, you know what I mean? So you got to be honest with yourself right now. Are you building freedom or are you building a life that you'll be stuck in? And let me rephrase this. Are you building freedom for yourself or are you building freedom for someone else? Because those are two completely different points. Like I said, I used to complain about this a lot, but complaining doesn't change anything. It just makes you feel better for a moment, and then you wake up and nothing is different. And once you're in that loop, in that simple cycle of waking up, not feeling good about your life, complaining, doing the work anyways, and then rinsing and repeating, and nothing is changing because you're not actually making a change, then it's going to be hard for you. So what I did is I just stopped talking and I started taking control where I could. I don't have everything figured out. I'm not some guru that's going to teach you how to fast track your life, but I know this. If you follow the default path, you will get the default life. And for most people, that's not a life they actually want. You got to sit down for a moment. You got to think to yourself, is this the life I actually want? Or am I meant for something bigger? And if you are, guess what? You're going to have to do a lot more work because it's very easy to get a job and stay there for the rest of your life. It's very easy to be told what to do and how to do it because you don't have to think for yourself. But if you want a life that you actually want to live, if you have dreams or aspirations bigger than working for a company or bigger than being controlled by somebody, you're going to have to think on your own for this. You can even get mentorship or have friends or be around like-minded people who actually want to support your dreams and goals just to help you get there faster. I always think that's important, and we need to be, as humans, we need to be able to build a community around ourselves and around each other to actually support these things that we like doing. If this made you think a little differently, that's good. That's the first step. I'm figuring this out in real time too. So if you want to level up your money, your mindset, and your life, stick around and start taking your next step. It's your choice. I'll see you in the next one.